Last week, we talked about vehicle maintenance, which is any operation that will keep the car in good running condition, reduce wear and breakdown, and save cost to the customer. The students did a fluid check paper where they checked the condition and level of the fluids. If there were any fluids that were low, they could take one of the fluids that was available and add as needed. They also wrote down a recommendation if a fluid service was needed. The students also learned how to use the rotary overhead lift. They found the lifting points underneath the vehicle and learned how to safely operate the overhead lift to put their car up in the air. Once the car was in the air, the students did an overhead lift check paper, and on this paper they tried to find the oil pan, oil plug, oil filter, and grease zerks, along with other items. Last week we also talked about service information and service intervals, which is the amount of time or number of miles between service checks or maintenance. This can be found in an owner's manual. If the students didn't have an owner's manual, they could look up the information on ProDemand and then print out the service based on the number of miles their vehicle had. Another thing that the students looked at in their owner's manual was the capacities and specifications for their car. And again, if the students didn't have an owner's manual, they could look up this information on ProDemand. We also had the students look up in a Valvoline catalog the oil weight and oil capacities for their vehicle. And in this case, you can see a 2012 Chevy Colorado. The oil weight was 5W30 and the oil capacity was 6 quarts. They also looked up in a MicroGuard catalog the type of oil filter and air filter they would need for their car. And again, for the Chevy Colorado, you can see the type of oil filter and air filter that's needed. Once they gathered this information, they documented on a maintenance schedule the oil capacity, oil weight, oil filter, and air filter before they did a fluid service. This week, I demonstrated how to do an oil change and replace the oil filter on a car. I gathered the correct tools and materials needed to change oil on the 2012 Chevy Colorado, and then I proceeded to give the demonstration. After the demonstration, we had to dispose of the oil properly in the oil barrel, and then the oil filter went inside the box on top of the oil barrel, and we used a hammer and punch to poke a hole in top of the oil filter. Once the oil change was complete, we documented on a sticker when the next oil change would be taking place, and this was put on the window inside their windshield of their car. Some students will have to reset the oil life system, and here you can see on the 2012 Colorado how that is reset. Next week, we're going to do our tire and brake unit. When the students had their cars on the overhead lift, they inspected their tires and they inspected their brakes. Next week, we will learn how to do a tire rotation, and once the tires are off of the car, we will balance the tires with the wheel balancer. If students noticed a nail in their tire, we'll learn how to take the tire off a rim using the tire machine, patch the hole in the tire before they put it back on the car. They'll also learn from the brake inspection whether or not they need to do a brake job. So we'll have the students practice with the brake demo and then learn how to turn drums and rotors on a brake lathe.